Okay guys, do you have problems with your dog in the house? Do you have problems with your dog jumping on guests, being aggressive towards people that are coming over? Do you have problems with your dogs getting along in the house? Do you have problems with your dog stealing food from the counters? Do you have problems with the dogs jumping on your kids? There are a plethora of issues that people face with their dog in the home and managing their dog in the home. And I'm here to tell you today that we have a solution for you. Almost every problem that clients bring me with their dogs in the house is easily solvable by teaching this one command. And this is the place command. If you follow my YouTube channel, you've heard me talk about it before, but I'm going to talk about it again, and I'm going to talk about it in depth since you paid for the training. Now you guys are going to get the real straight skinny on this. We're going to talk about every aspect of training this command. The benefits, the pitfalls, everything. So for me, the place command is an excellent way to introduce a new dog to my household. Whether it's an adult dog, whether it's a puppy, it's an excellent way. As you can see, this little puppy over here performing the place command has been there for the last half an hour. It's an excellent way to teach a dog how to control his or herself in the home. A lot of dogs struggle with self-control and impulse control. Whether it's under stimulation, like guests coming over, another dog in the house, the kids running back and forth or eating dinner. There are a multitude of stimulations that your dog's going to face, and if you don't teach your dog how to properly behave in the house, then you're going to have a lot of issues, especially with a young dog or a dog that has a higher level of energy or anxiety. Okay, so the best thing for dogs is to create black and white situations. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't correct your dog for the misbehavior. So if you have a dog that likes to steal from the counter, then you must correct the dog for stealing from the counter. If you have a dog that likes to jump on the kids, then you do have to correct the dog for jumping on the kids. But especially when you're bringing a dog into the house for the first time, it's so important that the first experience your dog has in the house isn't always a negative one. Telling the dog no, 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 correcting the dog all the time for making these mistakes. It's easy actually to just manage the situation more, especially with a young puppy like this. He's naturally going to want to get into everything, jump on everything, bite everything, chew everything. This is normal for him, okay? So we don't want to get in a situation where we're always telling him no and we're always having to correct him. It's unnecessary stress. Instead, what we're going to do, just like as if you had a 2 or 3-year-old child in your house, you're not going to give them free run of the house and say, make good decisions. You're going to put them in situations where they can be successful. You're going to supervise them. You're going to manage them. Or if you're not directly supervising them, maybe you're going to put them in a gated off area or something. Now for dogs, I don't like restraining them unless I absolutely have to. And by restraining them, I mean putting them in rooms or locking them in crates. There's a time and a place to do that. But if I'm home, I want my dog to be in the family situation with us. I want the dog to be experiencing the strangers coming over, experiencing the kids running around, experiencing all of it, but learning how to deal with it in a productive way. Not overstimulating and becoming hyper-aroused, but being calm, relaxed. So for me, this is where the place command comes in. The concept of the place command is go on the bed, as you can see with this puppy. Go on the bed and stay on the bed. You can stand up, you can turn around, you can sit, you can do whatever the heck it is that you want to do. You just have to stay on the bed. That is the most important concept. And it's something that is really easy for dogs. So for me, when I train this, I use a surface that is elevated. Okay, like this bed here. It's an elevated surface. It's very easy for the dog to discern from the ground. Now, if I wanted to use like that floor mat over there, it wouldn't be so easy. Dogs aren't so good with soft and hard, but they're good with up and down. It's really easy for them to discern whether they're on or off something. So I'm going to show you how I introduce the place to Nala here, okay? And then we're going to escalate from there, and we're going to show you all the steps towards training this behavior to perfection. The last time I went on an RV trip with my dogs, every RV site is equipped with a picnic table. So the place just isn't for in your house. I would often be in the RV and my dogs, like all 4 of them, would be on the place command on the picnic table outside in the RV site. And people would be walking by with their dogs and other campers would be around and my dogs would just remain on that picnic table. So I didn't have to tie them up. I didn't have to keep them in the RV. They were outside. I was in the RV most of the time. And they were outside just behaving themselves on that place. You know, if my kid's going to play in the playground, there's often flat rocks around the benches. I just send my dog to place on the flat rock. And the reason why I like place is the dog can hold it longer than like a sit or a down. Because sitting down is one-dimensional. Place is just go beyond the thing. All 4 paws on the thing. That's the only rule of place. So generally, it's pretty easy for dogs to perform once they know it. And it's really easy for you, more importantly, to hold the dog accountable to it. That's the most important thing. All right, guys, so I'm going to show you how I introduce the plays to a dog for the first time. Now, Nala here has some food motivation. I'm going to show you kind of both ways, assuming that your dog doesn't have food motivation. So in the beginning, with the dog, I'm going to show them the bed just with some food a little bit here. No command, just luring, feeding, break, and giving them the break signal the second I feed them and inviting them off the bed. And then again, break, all right? And I would do this a few more times, all right? And just really make sure that the dog is comfortable going on. Some dogs are fearful to step up on there. It just is, it looks funny, it feels funny, they're not super comfortable with it. So if my dog was fearful, or if my dog just didn't want to eat that much, what I would do is I would just use the leash pressure and the praise in the beginning. So all I would do is I'd make leash pressure, release, good girl, break, and get her off. All right, and again, leash pressure, good girl, break, good. And one more time, leash pressure, good girl, break. And let me talk quickly about why I don't say the command. I do not say the command because there is a possibility that the dog is going to be afraid of this, that the dog is going to fight me over getting on it, and I don't want to associate a command with a behavior that the dog is not comfortable with. I don't want to associate a command with stress. First, I'm going to make sure the dog is really comfortable going on and off before I add a command. Obviously, you can see Nala here has no issues going on and off, so now it's safe to kind of add the command to the behavior, all right? Whether I'm doing it with food, pressure, or a combination of both. Now, because she's a dog that obviously doesn't mind eating, I am going to use it. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say here, place, and I used a little bit of pressure to get her on. I released the pressure and I fed her. Now, one thing I see a lot of people do that you don't want to do, okay, is this. They make that pressure and then they keep the pressure on while the dog is on there. Right? Look at how confusing that is to the dog. If you're going to use pressure for the dog to be on the plate, the pressure goes on, place, and comes off the instant the dog is correct. Even if she jumps off on the other side, for the instant that she's on the bed, the pressure is gone. Believe me, I have some dogs, they act like this is hot lava in the beginning. I pressure them, they go on, I release the pressure, they jump off the other side. I pressure them again, they go on, and we do this for like 5 minutes until finally the dog's like settles on the place and they're like, and they're like, oh, there's no pressure here. Everything's relaxed, everything's calm. You know, maybe there's food if the dog is food motivated. Maybe there's praise and affection. That's what motivates the dog. And the dog that learns very quickly that being on the bed is a good thing. Break. All right? So, once in the beginning, all I do is quick on, off. And I do this a number of times until the dog shows me that she understands. Right? And you can do it with just pressure, with pressure to food, or with food and pressure in a combination. It depends on the dog in front of you. There's not always one way. But if the easiest method I find is pressure to food. So, place, mark, feed. Okay, the next step, I'm going to move around the place. Make sure the dog will hold the position. Again, I'm not holding her. I'm allowing her to make mistakes. If she makes a mistake, I'm going to mark the mistake. Place, pressure on, pressure off. This is the difference between having a dog that stays there for 5 minutes and having a dog that stays there, place, for 5 hours. That's good. All right? You have to be super clear with the dog. When you come off, there's immediately a notification that the dog has made a mistake and the application of pressure until the dog goes back on the bed. That is super important. And a lot of people don't do it. They just kind of lead the dog back and say, and they put the dog back and they put the dog back. But guess what? Putting the dog back isn't much of a consequence. So naturally, the dog is just going to keep coming off whenever he or she feels like it. What I do is I'm very clear. You stay on until you hear break. And if I say break and the dog doesn't come off because she's not sure about the signal, then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to guide the dog off with a little bit of pressure and an inviting body language. I don't keep saying break, 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 and hoping my dog magically learns the English language. It doesn't work like that. Dogs don't know what words are until we show them. And you have to show them with many repetitions. Just like I'm not going to say, place, 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 and hope that the dog figures that out. I'm going to give the signal once. Place. Guide the dog. Mark, reward. And then, if I want her to come off, I can give the signal. If I want her to stay on, I don't say anything. And she's going to learn real quick. Place. Good. And she's going to learn real quick that she needs to stay on. Place. Good girl. And I'm super quick. I mark the instant she makes an error. Place. And you can see that thought process. You know, she's learning. Good girl. And now I'm seeing, that's some self-control. So now I'm going to mark and I'm going to feed the dog and I'm going to praise her. I'm going to reassure her you're doing the right thing. You're on the right. You're on the right track here. Stay on the bed. So I'm going to move around and move around until my dog shows me place that she's willing to stay, and that me moving is not an invitation for her to come off. Good girl. Good. And this, I'm going to remind her what come off, what signals the ability for her to come off. And that's going to be break. Yes, good girl. And again, never trained this dog before, right? She's just roughly at that stage in the training where I can do this video. So again, you know, it's always organic. And that's the most important thing with our training videos, is I want to show you guys what it might look like for you. So if I just use a cooperative and compliant dog, what's the point? Place. Good. The second you say break, don't just stand there waiting for the dog to figure out what the concept of break is. You must show the dog. So Stephen, just have her go on the bed again with the food. Release. Good. And now stand away and then really make that break super obvious. Break. So you see how he invites the dog with his body language to come off the bed, right? That's a proper break. He's really making it obvious to the dog and gently pulling her off the bed. He's not popping her off the bed or anything like that. He's just gently guiding her off the bed. So you can see she has a positive association with being on the bed. Now, a lot of people are good at teaching their dog to go on the bed because it's relatively, it's not at all difficult to teach. The difference between teaching your dog to go on the bed and teaching your dog to stay on the bed comes from obligation. And your ability to really reinforce for the dog that it's not an option to come off. There you go. Now walk around the bed on a loose leash. So what I do is I'll do this. We just walk around the bed on a loose leash and reinforce for the dog, you must hold the position. If she steps off, then he's going to mark with the our soft no, and he's going to pressure the dog. Pressure, 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 all the way back. And that's a really important thing. You don't just lead the dog back. You make pressure on the collar, and you hold the dog accountable to the behavior. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Good girl. And now she's learning that she must wait on the bed, and he's intentionally moving around the bed because when you move, your dog generally wants to move with you. So it's kind of the first way that you can start to proof the dog. Mark and reward there. And you can reward her when she makes the decision to stay on the bed. Move around a little bit more. Maybe a little faster, like a little more sudden. Pressure, pressure, pressure. There you go. And now do that same thing. And intentionally, you know, try to get the dog off the bed without telling the dog to go off the bed. When she controls herself, mark. Good girl. Very good. Okay. And now, breaker. Break. And I do a lot of breaks when I'm doing the training, especially in the beginning, to really cement in the dog's head that the end of this is when you hear break. A lot of dogs really don't know how to end a behavior. They're not familiar with that concept. Saying stay to them doesn't help them. Stay is a concept that only humans understand. Dogs understand beginning, middle, end. So you want to show her the beginning is the command. So why don't you have her go on the place? The beginning is the command, place. Okay, the middle is her staying on the place. Move around it again, Steve. There you go. Really fast. And correct her if she, yes. There we go. There we go. All right. And the end is when he says break. Very good. All right, guys, so the next step, I'm going to put the dog on place. And what am I going to do now? I am going to drop the leash, okay? And I'm going to move away from the dog. And I'm going to be over here at a distance. And if she comes off, all I'm going to do is I'm going to mark with the soft no, and I'm going to immediately pressure the dog back to the bed, okay? So even if she runs over there, no problem, I'm going to mark, I'm going to go grab the leash, I'm going to go pick the leash up, and I'm going to frog march her with pressure back to the bed. So, I want you guys to understand this concept. There's an escalating pressure involved, you know? It's not something where you need to take 10 sessions to train it. It's actually a very fast command to train because it's so easy. So even when distractions come into the room, obviously the dog is able to hold the position. Whether you have a puppy over here, as you can see, right? Even when there's something going on over here, he's able to control himself. He's only a few months old. Or a dog who's never done this before, over here you can see she can control herself. Even when she sees a new dog in the background, she's still able to hold the position. All right? Good girl, you're so good. All right, again, the command. And I always point, I don't just stand here barking plays. I always tell her, right? I'll always say, hey, place, and I show her where I want her to be. And now she stays there until she hears the command that she can break, or sorry, the signal that she can break. If she breaks, immediately I'll mark it. Even from a distance, I'll mark it. If I'm sitting, always sit, because they like to break on the sit a lot. Good girl. Good. Good. So, you can see that she's holding it. She's actually quite good. Put her in the dog trailer. Yeah. All right. Very good. Good girl. Good job, Mel. Okay, guys, so this is how I introduce it. I'm firm, I'm fair, I'm really clear, you know, and I make my pressure on the dog appropriate to what the dog is doing. All right, so it's really important. It's really important that everything be super clear to the dog. And then, of course, that you escalate. For me, I train the place within a day. All right? Oh, real quick, just to show you guys what I'm talking about with the RV. Bring it over here. So this was my last RV trip, okay? All the dogs on the place. And they literally would be out there for hours, people passing by. Because we taught the command properly. And they understood it, and they were reliable with it. All right? So, this is the beginning, guys. Part 2 and Part 3 will be coming up shortly. Thank you for watching.